Thanks everyone for coming. Does it look like we're still getting a few people jumping in? Yes.
Yep.
We'll give it just another couple minutes.
It has slowed down though, so it might just we might have a few late folks, but I think anytime you're ready, it's probably fine.
I have too many screens. Let's see what I got going up here. So, yeah, as people continue putting their name and library in the chat box for the roll call, Becky, if you could take notes for minutes, that would be amazing. We will be recording it so that you can have that as a reference, but having actual minutes is fantastic. Thank you. On my slide show, I actually forgot the MSC staff introduction, so I don't have a slide for that, but I think we can go around and just introduce ourselves. Since I'm already talking, I will start. I'm Amy Martwick. I work for the State Library. I'm the Shared Catalog Lead System Administrator. So we work, I think most of you know us, but we work with configuring and supporting you guys. And the rest of the MSL people, do you want me to call on you, or do you just want to go at random?
Up to you.
Why don't you go ahead, Melody?
Okay, this is Melody Carley. I am also a library system administrator for the Montana Shared Catalog, and I'm glad to be here.
And I'll just call you here. Oh, or unless you were gonna, was that Mel? Were you just gonna go?
It was. I'm Mel Carroll, system administrator with the Shared Catalog.
And then I'm Laura Treader, system administrator here.
Kylie McGregor, Shared Catalog trainer.
And then I think Kara, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Orban. I'm the consortia coordinator. So I work with a lot of things that are adjacent to Shared Catalog, including OCLC and the Courier. And we'll be talking to you about OCLC here in a little while.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop my video just because I have to look at the other screen. So plus we're sharing. So the first item on the agenda is the minutes from spring 2023, which I have. Hopefully if everybody got a chance to look at those, they were on the Ask an Event. Can you see those on my screen, or do you just see the roll call thing still?
Still seeing the roll call.
All right, let me swap that. Okay, so here are the minutes from our spring meeting, and if there's any corrections that we need, or I guess we might need a motion to approve the minutes. We need corrections.
Deb Wellstrom will make a motion to approve the minutes.
And do we have a second?
So Elizabeth Jonkel, I'll second that motion.
Okay, great. Is there any discussion, any corrections anybody feels are needed, or any questions, comments about the minutes? So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the spring membership meeting minutes. All in favor, either say aye or put aye in the chat.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. All right. There was a comment about you think you're there but don't see your name. Mostly listed it by libraries. So if you don't see your library, I think we grabbed those from the chat at the beginning, but I think we can adjust that. But does anybody know if we need to revote then to change the attendee list?
I think you can just approve as appended, like with, you can say, does everyone, unless there's some objection, you would just approve with the update.
So do we need a new motion and a new second?
I mean, no, I think because it's something minor, you can just say unless there, and so you would ask for objection.
All right, thanks, Melody. So yeah, so we're gonna amend the roll call to include a library that got left off. Unless there's any objection, we'll consider. So speak now if there are objections. Otherwise, it looks like the motion passed. I saw only ayes and only heard ayes. Okay, yeah, so the roll call on it is a little iffier, but if you were attending and you don't see yourself on this list, let us know. We'll adjust the roll call. Let's see what is next. Okay, so I think that the next thing on the agenda is the review of, is Kara.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen here in a little bit because I wanted to share the results of the group services questionnaire with you all. I thought it was very interesting. So thank you to everyone who responded to that questionnaire. So again, my name is Carol Orban, and I am the Consortia statewide projects person at the State Library. And one of the projects I'm involved with is OCLC group services. And so I'm sure some of you have heard me talk about this before, but the reason we're evaluating the group services contract is because it's kind of a unique contract for at least the library contracts that we hold at the State Library, in that it's considered a sole source, meaning that when we go out for renewal, there aren't really any other competitors. And so we have been able to continuously renew or sign new contracts with OCLC for about 20 plus years now. And so it's important that we continue to evaluate the effectiveness and the value of this contract. And probably now more than ever, our budgets and our contracts are always up for scrutiny, and we want to be ready to justify the value of this contract, and we know it's very important to the shared catalog. So thank you for providing your input. The questions that we're asking about this contract, which I discussed with the Content Management Committee recently, are: to what extent do group services members use the service? What barriers might they encounter, and how could we address those barriers? And is the level of benefit for our consortium appropriate to the amount of funding and staff time invested? And if there are disparities in participation across different library groups, how could we address those? And so we're starting to learn more about how you're using the the services so that we can start to answer some of these questions. Of course, we have statistics that we can get from OCLC, but your input is, it really helps round out our understanding of how we're using this contract. And our success statement would be, because of our OCLC contract, people are able to discover and check out any material they are seeking from libraries anywhere. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Oh, is that okay if I share my screen? Sorry, I didn't mean to kick you off, Amy. Okay. And so you should be seeing this form, which says OCLC Group Services Questionnaire at the top. We had 79 responses, and not all of those were shared catalog, but I'm guessing the majority were shared catalog. We didn't necessarily know who was responding to these questions. And I just wanted to share some of the results with you and what they mean for us here at the State Library. So rating your familiarity with each of the services in our group services contract. The cataloging tools, Connection and Cat Express, the majority of respondents had either never heard of these tools or were not very familiar with them. And for shared catalog members, that might be because maybe a lot or most of you are doing your copy cataloging through SmartPort instead of directly through OCLC, which is fine. We know you're making really great use of the cataloging services, so that's not a great concern. It was somewhat surprising to learn that nearly 35% of respondents had either not heard of WorldCat or were basically unfamiliar with it or weren't sure about it. And then WorldCat Discovery and First Search are discovery interfaces provided by OCLC, and those have not been very well used. They're one of those services that a few libraries use quite a lot, but the majority are not using. So we need to figure out how we can make an adjustment to that part of our contract. It is kind of a significant amount of money we spend on First Search and WorldCat Discovery that we're probably not getting the value that we should out of that part of our contract. How do you review or how often do you review and update your library's information in WorldCat? And I wasn't really surprised because we haven't talked about this very much, that a lot of people are not thinking about that or not frequently updating your library contact information in WorldCat. And so that is something we've identified as a training need or something that we need to put on our checklist to talk about with libraries. Most of you said that you do have somebody at your library who is at least partially or fully dedicated to cataloging work. And on average, people are spending about 9 hours a week doing cataloging work. The median was 4 hours. And then of course, there are some libraries that have at least one full-time staff person doing cataloging. So it varies widely. The average was 9. How do you add a new item to your catalog? Almost everyone mentioned SmartPort or workflows. And there were a few mentions of Connection and then a few non-MSC responses. And what do you do when, no, sorry, I went too far ahead. What do you do when you have an item that is in need of original cataloging? So this was something that inspired a lot of comments. Most respondents seem to express some hesitation or uncertainty around items for which you could not find a bib record. Either you would create a brief record for the item or wait until someone else created a record for the item, or else set it aside indefinitely. And so that was an area that we flagged as needing to provide more information about how you can address some of those original cataloging needs in your library. And as far as how many items, this also varied widely depending on the type of library and the size of the library. It was 17.5 items on average. So not a huge amount. Some of you said none, some of you said a few items. There were some larger publics, some academics and special libraries that have hundreds and even thousands of items waiting to be cataloged. So it varied. As for interlibrary loan, again, majority of you had somebody who was at least partially dedicated to doing interlibrary loan work, not quite as many as cataloging, but still in the same range. And yet you're spending more time on ILL than you were on cataloging. The average was 11 hours a week on interlibrary loan, and the median was 5 hours. Almost everyone was spending less than 25 hours a week on ILLs in their library. What do you do when a patron requests an item that you don't have in your collection? So, and this was probably one that I could have designed better because we had 41% reporting other, and reading the comments, it seemed that most people are doing a combination of these. So this should have been a multiple choice answer where you could select multiple answers. So 34% said request through OCLC, 19% said request through a sharing group in the shared catalog, and then 5% said they just purchased the item. And then 41% of you in the comments said that you will do a combination of these depending on the item being requested and the nature of the request. We asked some other questions that are not specifically about the OCLC contract, but which we were hoping to learn more about because, as I said earlier, these things kind of overlap: shared catalog, OCLC, career, and our collaborative collection development and resource sharing goals. So the obstacles that most of you identified were budget, space, time, money, which is the same thing as budget, I guess, and transportation. So having an infrastructure for delivering items. And then any other needs. Most of you said you appreciate more training, and several people said, especially on original cataloging, there would be, they would appreciate at least being pointed towards some resources. So our takeaways from this questionnaire are to remind people of the training resources we already have available to address some of these needs: copy cataloging, updating your records in WorldCat or your library record in WorldCat, and using our interlibrary loan services, reminding people of the original cataloging mentors program, and preparing some outreach on sharing groups and the career network to address some of those questions. The partners at their most recent meeting was talking about developing a print retention strategy and perhaps some other possibilities to help address some space issues. And so that would be an example of something that could help to reduce some of those barriers that you identified in question 11. And then, as I said, we're going to look into what our options might be for reducing the costs for search and WorldCat discovery. And I just want to finish by saying that we are definitely going to ensure everybody has access to the tools they need. We're not going to strip out any access that is being well used by your library, so don't worry about that. We just want to make sure we're getting the best value for the most people through this contract. So if you have thoughts about that, please get in touch with me, and any other questions or ideas, I'm available. So thanks.
So I have a question. So I was wondering if, as a result of this survey, Kara, what are the thoughts about keeping this intact, or does it have to go through a commissioners meeting, a vote, that kind of process? Because as mentioned, we don't really have a competitor for World Share and cataloging. So I'm curious, what are your next step from this survey?
As far as the contract goes, like I said, I don't think we're going to, for various reasons, I don't really think we should try to dramatically change this contract. But if we can try to align our use with the costs we're paying and have a conversation with OCLC about that. That would be my goal, is to reduce costs in areas where our group services are being underutilized by most libraries. And I did notice your question about First Search going away, and the way that it's listed in our bill is First Search / WorldCat Discovery. So my assumption is that that would just is expected to replace First Search, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we still need to be paying for it at the level that we get it through our contract. And Deb, I'll be sending out some information after this meeting about our group services contract and services.
Thanks.
I'm over here talking, completely muted. I was just saying, if there's any more questions for Kara, thank you for that update, Kara. I found those survey results very interesting. Okay, so I think the next thing on the agenda is the system update, which was, we have a printed system update as we normally have, and let me switch to share that on the screen. It did get posted, I think just yesterday we finished it, but cannot find it on my screen. One second, where did it go? This is in the Aspen event information. Hopefully you guys can see it on my screen now. Most, if not all of these notices in this system consortium update have been in our announcements via email over the last several months. So hopefully none of them are a huge surprise. Just a reminder that we did update to Workforce 4.0. If you didn't check after the upgrade to make sure that the little icon when you do the help and about says 4.0, please do that. It always works better if you're on the current version. We have implemented 2 of the new products that we received from Cersei Dynex, SMS notifications and Kids Catalog. I was going to pull up Kids Catalog on the screen right here real quick. So you can see it. SMS notifications doesn't have anything visual and nifty. Let me switch to this for the share. You can get this on your specific enterprise profile that is a graphic kids search. We've been announcing this for a while, but if you want it and you still don't have it, please open a ticket. And the same with text messages for your patrons. In that system update document, there are links to the KB articles about the SMS, how that all works. Kind of feel like I should just share my screen instead of individual. Okay, do you guys see the consortium update on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Billings Public School District has gone live in the shared catalog. We're glad to have them on board. Harleton will be going live later this fall. The Content Management Committee met. We've made a couple of changes to the enterprise search results. One is, let's see if I can, no, it's not Zoom, email it. If I can zoom in a little bit here. No, that's that didn't help at all. They changed the, let's see. If an item is a CD, an audiobook, or music sound recording, it will now have this content type that shows the difference between sound recordings and books on CD that are not music, so that patrons can tell the difference between those and things like there was some other audio, like what are they called? Playaways, things like that, so that people can tell the difference. And then in the publication information, there was a little fix for that. We've adjusted, or we're allowing an adjustment to the assume loss process for your hotspots. This was just recently. If you want your hotspots to move through assumed loss more quickly than your other items, you can open a ticket. We have some faster options there. The Gallatin County Library Sharing Group is doing a project or a test pilot of splitting serials or items in series onto separate bibs instead of one. So we're looking to see how that will work in a sharing group and at the construction level. So if you see that where those 5 libraries are on individual bibs, that's not an error. And then a quick reminder that if you have an item in a series, it only should get a V period number on a record if the record has all or multiple volumes in the set or the series. If you're just trying to show that it's like the first in a series and it's on a record by itself, use the number symbol. Oops, trying to scroll down. We've started the original cataloging earlier this year. We've had 35 items get original cataloged. If you can't find a record on Smartport, there is a KB article, so you can submit a request for that and we can original catalog it for you. And we have been doing office hours since the last member meeting, and they have been very successful. We've had over 30 attendees. We can really get down and troubleshoot for people or just even demonstrate things on the screen for them. And I'm going to pause before the next 2 and go back and check the questions. I see they're getting answered in chat, but just so that they're in the recording as well. There's a question about whether we're still getting the program from Susie Dynex that's supposed to help with event calendars, scheduling meeting rooms, etc. That is as Melody answered in the chat, that's the community engagement platform that is in our contract. It's just not implemented yet. As we're working through the setup and testing of these various products, we're kind of doing them in a line. So, oh, sorry, I didn't even notice there were sound issues.
I mean, I'm not sure. It seems like we had one person who had sound issues, but it sounded like other people are still hearing. So I'm not sure if that was an individual library. I could hear you the whole time and we're not in the same town. So I think it might have been it. Okay. And it sounds like she can hear again now.
Okay. So if there's any other questions about any of the things I just skimmed by, please go ahead and ask them now. Like I said, this is on the event page in Aspen. So if you want to go but have it for reference. But
Amy, it's Deb Westrom. So 30 people in the office hours is great. Do you guys feel like that means it's a worthy thing, or like how, or like
I'll let everybody else chime in as well because we've helped different people, but I feel like it's been very great. Like we jump on there, we take turns who's going to be in the office hours. Sometimes people will show up right at the beginning. Sometimes they pop in halfway through, but the variety of problems we've been able to resolve just by being, available on the spur of the moment and being able to jump into a meeting, I think has worked really well.
I'd be happy to speak to this too, Deb. This is Melody, and I think it especially helps when people aren't even sure exactly how to articulate their problem, which happens, as we all know, with anything related to technology. So if they need to kind of ask follow-up questions, it's a little easier than putting in a ticket for some sorts of problems. We also have some people who've attended with multiple problems, so 30 attendees, but very often multiple questions. And then in many cases, they get handled right there with, screenshots and other things where they can see our screen. So it's a little bit different on how we're reaching people, but I think it has been very effective as well.
And in the chat, I see that now three of the people who have come to the office hours have said that it's been beneficial for them. So.
And just to let you all know, the next office hours is this Friday. We'll be meeting at 10 and 2.
And just, I think we've mentioned this in some of the promotion of it, but if you need to have a Zoom call and the office hours are not convenient to you and you put in a ticket, you can say to us too, I think I might need like a Zoom or a screen share so that we can work through something, because sometimes a ticket is more difficult than talking in person. So you can always let us know that too if you can't attend.
Okay, I did want to show you, I kind of skimmed by it, but I wanted to show you the Zoom. Scroll, show you a couple of things. The new product, the next product that we'll be implementing from our list of new products from the contract is called Symphony Web. And I wanted to show everybody what that looks like. We're currently doing in the final stages of testing and configuration for this. Can you guys see my browser screen?
Yes.
Okay, so it will be a login screen like this. And let me grab the password for this login. And it's through the browser, so it is encrypted traffic. There's no install required, which I know will be nice for those of you who have maybe multiple, like one put it on a laptop, or you have to have your IT there for every single update. But it's in the browser and it's workflows in the browser. So you will see the same file preference wizard. The preferences will be a little bit different in that it still will have the receipt printer and barcode printer set up, but there's some options. And some of these options are still available, like you can do tab windows and multiple tab windows, but some things have gone away just because it's not an app, it's in the browser. I'm pretty sure that there's not color options anymore.
There are not, and that has been for some people a challenge if you need like a higher contrast. But workflows, the client is not going away. So this is an added thing, not, so if you don't like it, you don't have to use it.
And it does respond very well to the resizing in the browser. So if you need larger toolbar, we know that's been an option too. Resizing those in workflows has been not always great. You can do that just in the browser. And it looks, there won't be hopefully a huge learning curve because it is essentially workflows in the browser. So the buttons are the same, the pop-ups are the same. There will be a few differences in how it works regarding properties and things like that, but we will have KB articles and everything to cover that when we're ready to release it to you. But just wanted to give people a look at it.
Mark, I think that it does, but Amy might be able to test right there. Amy, does the copy and paste work in the browser version?
That is a good question.
I'm pretty sure that it does because I feel like I copied and pasted barcodes and things into it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's see. I'm typing something in the other screen and seeing. Are we talking right click or control?
Right click, right click.
I don't see right click.
Okay. If you're, yeah, we don't want to bring it up any patron information, obviously, but if there's an item, you can't copy out of an item If you
Oh,
go to item search and display and like try to copy a barcode or something, would that work?
I don't believe it does. I don't think you
Okay,
can
darn.
do it. You still have to do the control V and the control C, I believe.
Okay. Can't remember what I've tested and haven't tested. But yeah, so you can't right click on. So it looked like you got a menu there.
yeah, that's
If you select and right click.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can't paste with right click though. It's not giving me. You can
Okay, so
highlight, but if you're trying to get information, like if you're trying to get a barcode to paste into a help desk ticket, you can right click and copy.
okay,
yeah, so it's
but no
kind of-
paste. Weird.
Yeah. But just to show everybody what that looks like. And then just to let you all know, this is actually, it's on the system update, it's actually the next item on the agenda. We have switched the Gov Delivery newsletter platform. We have been using that successfully, I think, since just after, or just, no, it was before the spring meeting. We've been using it successfully for quite a while. Google Groups, which is where our MSC Discuss listserv is, has become increasingly troublesome over the last few years. I don't know that it's highly supported by Google. It's just a free product that we use. We have trouble registering people. People can't register themselves. Sometimes we can't tell if people are getting their emails. Gov Delivery, the Gov Delivery platform that we're using to send the newsletters out now, resolves all of those issues. There's a link here to subscribe if you're not subscribed, but we are going to be sunsetting the current MSC Discuss on January 1st, because right now we're just copying the Gov Deliveries over to MSC Discuss. We think most people have moved their subscriptions over, but just because it works so much better than the Google group. I'm going to pull up a page here to show you this new KB article is new, but we will continue with it. This has the archive of all of our Gov Deliveries that have gone out. So it's on one page in the KB, so you can see like, oh, I was getting these, but I missed this one or whatever. You can pull them back up. And when you click on them, it pulls up the Gov Deliveries bulletin thing, and you can subscribe even from there. So I see there are questions in the chat. There was a question about if Wired will be sunsetting, and Wired is administered by MLA, so that won't be affected. They're on a completely different platform. They're not using the Google Groups platform.
Sorry, this is Heidi Sue, and I miss where you would click to get to the archives. Can you show that again, please? May I have a replay in slow motion, please?
Yes, so if you come to the help desk, I actually grabbed that link off a different page. This is just a question out loud to MSC staff. We could put a link to this page at the bottom of the newsletter, right? So they could click, they'll get to this page. Yes, we'll do that.
Yes, I'll go ahead and add that in.
But if you come to the help desk, oops, that's not the help desk, that's the state library's website. Come to the help desk and choose the knowledge base, shared catalog, and then under administrative business, there's the newsletter archive here. You could always also probably search for like MSC newsletter, and the article would come up because the search in the help desk works well. But we will add a link to this to the bottom of the email. So when new emails come out, you'll get a link to the archive. Any questions about any of that? Any other questions? I think everything got grabbed, everything that I saw in the chat. Oh, there was a question about whether we'd be able to use the 4.0 app or if we'd be going to the web only, and you can use either or both. Once we get Symphony rolled out, they'll both work. The last part of the system admin is our system update. I just wanted to give everybody a little intro information about the cloud source demo. It's scheduled at 3. Cersei Dynex is going to do a demo for us for this product. It's a platform they have that manages e-content like databases, journal articles, things like that. And we've had several members requesting that we purchase this or that we implement this product. And because it would be a new product for us, we would need to purchase it. And to purchase it, we would need to get member approval. So even before we can start discussing if members are interested in it or not, we need people to know what it is. As we do look at it, though, we have heard from Cersei that this doesn't have to be an everybody in. This can be in something that if an individual library ends up wanting it and nobody else does, that individual library can purchase it. So yeah, so I just wanted to make it really clear, like, this is not a sales pitch on the part of the MSC staff to get this. It's just so we have the information to have a discussion as a group about whether members as a whole are interested or if it will be just a few librarians or how we want to move forward with this. There is questions about if it manages databases or have access to databases. I am going to let that question wait until they give the demo because it's a fairly robust product, and I watched a demo a couple years ago while they were still rolling it out. So Cersei will be better able to answer exactly what that product does. There was a question I see earlier up about if members want to communicate with each other, if there's still a way to do that with MSC Discuss going away. We do have the community boards on Zoho. We have never seen a ton of activity on them, but if anybody has ideas about ways for the members to talk to each other, Wired is not going away, so you can still put we see people post on there asking for help with policies and things like that. All right. Let's see. Okay, so this is just to reiterate that the MSC Discuss will be ending on January 1st. The Gov delivery will be our method going forward from then. We'll continue between now and then to mirror the Gov delivery to MSC Discuss. We did also want to mention that this MSC Discuss is or the new Gov delivery and MSC Discuss as well. They're not limited to just your director. They should be anyone at your library who needs information from us can be subscribed. I think one of the people on my team said if it's somebody who would be interested to know if the system was unexpectedly down and why I should be subscribed to that Gov delivery. So feel free to have multiple people at your library. If your IT needs to know when the system is going to be down or for updates, anyone at your library can be subscribed and multiple people can be as well. The rest, let's see. So the next item on the agenda is the bylaws revision. I don't know if we will have this done by 3 for the demo. If we do not, we will pause, watch the demo, and then go back into the bylaw review. But maybe it will go quickly. We'll see. I have so many documents of bylaws. I have, let me pull them all up on the screen here. What's this? All right, so I have the draft new document. I have the old document if we need to pull it up. I have the comments that were made on the Google Doc that we put up. Which I think I can keep on the screen, or I'll move to the other screen and we can then read them out loud. And we didn't actually receive any comments through the other means, but I did think that probably the best way to do this, since this is such a massive rewrite of the bylaws, is to go article by article for approval. We can't really go change by change, because if you saw the track changes at the end of the drafting process, it was basically the whole thing was the red crossed out, and it change by change is not really going to work. But I talked to Tracy yesterday to make sure that I knew exactly how we needed to do this to follow Robert's rules. So we will, if we are going to do it article by article, we would need a motion and a second to approve like the revised Article 1 of the bylaws. Then we can discuss it. And then if there's any changes that need to be made to this draft, we make a motion to amend the draft, and then we approve it, that amendment, and then that goes back up to the original motion, where we have to then move to accept Article 1 with the amendments. So, and if we get ourselves, Tracy said, if we get to the point where that we've talked about the amendments and we have a lot going on and that's hard to convey in the motion, we can vote down the original amendment, and then we can make a new motion to say that we move to approve the article with all the amendments listed on, all the edits listed on the screen. So as we make changes, we'll put them on the screen so people can follow along. Because bylaws, complicated. So this is the draft. It's in actually the Google Doc. I might just do the edits here. Although I do have a document. So if we make motions to change things, I will put those on the screen so everybody can see them. And yes, that is a great idea to put the link in the chat. Can I just put this link? Here is the link to this Google Doc. So if you want to pull it up on the screen and follow along. I don't know if there's any comments on the bylaws overall. I will say that most of the changes we made were just to clarify things that had been unclear in the past, or just to remove the executive board from the bylaws and to put in new procedures to cover that change. Otherwise, I would, if there's no comments overall, if somebody wants to make a motion and a second, what do we say? I would entertain a motion so we can start discussion on this process.
I move to start. I, Karen Mayhall from Skyview High School here in Billings, Montana, vote to start discussion on the bylaws.
I think it needs to be a move to approve, like Article 1. If
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Need to move to approve Article 1.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second from Great Falls Public Library.
Thank you, Susie. So we have a motion and a second to approve Article 1 of the bylaws. And so here they are on the screen. If you can need me to make them bigger, I will. We have a couple of comments in the Google document. There was a question about the MSC contract and whether that's the same for all signing libraries. And the answer to that is yes, that is the same for all signing libraries. When you join the shared catalog, sign that contract as part of your application. And we revised the contract last, I think in 2017 or 2018. After we finish the bylaws review, we will probably have to revise the contract to more accurately convey what's in the bylaws, because I think the contract also mentions the executive board, but we have to do the bylaws first. So just to answer that question. And then there was a question about where the third section says the Montana State Library provides all financial services. And if there was a question about if there would still be a charge. And in this case, financial services means we collect the money from the members, we pay the vendors, things like that. There is still a cost for membership in the shared catalog. Are there any other questions, or do people want amendments? Any discussion about Article 1? All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So I think that we can go ahead and say all those in favor of the motion to approve Article 1, please say aye or type aye in the chat.
Karen from Billings, this is Becky and I'm taking the minutes. Can I also get you, once everybody's done voting, to just type your name in the chat? And then going forward, if you motion or second, if you would type your name in the chat, that would help me a lot.
You bet.
All right. Any opposed, type nay or say nay. All right. It looks like that motion passes. Don't hear unanimously, so that's great. So then I would entertain a motion to approve Article 2 of the bylaws. And I think that Becky was just asking for name and library if you make a motion. I don't think you need to put it in for your votes.
Amy, I'll make a motion that we approve Article 2. This is Becky.
Becky, do we have a second for that motion?
Deb Westrom will second it.
All right. And we have a motion and a second. So now we can have a discussion. Are there any questions, amendments, changes, concerns about Article 2? All right. Not hearing any discussion. Give you like 10 more seconds to type in the chat. All those in favor of approving Article 2 of the bylaws, please say aye or type aye in chat. And any opposed, say nay or type nay in the chat. All right, it looks like that motion carries and Article 2 is approved. So I would entertain a motion for Article 3.
This is Elizabeth Jonkel. I'll make a motion to approve Article 3.
And do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Carmen Clark Bozeman.
All right, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the Article 3 of the bylaws. Any discussion, questions, or concerns? There was a question at the beginning of this, so I'll read that to give people time to type if they're going to type in the chat. And in the Google documents, there was a question of will there be an effort to get information to school librarians as much of the contract is signed and corresponded with the superintendent and business offices of school districts. And the answer to that is yes, that we will continue, especially through our Gov delivery and direct communication with libraries, to talk to the librarians, because there's actually a lot of places where the contract is signed by somebody who's not at the library every day. I don't know if that needs to be explicit in the bylaws. I think in this case, it was just defining what a member library is, as opposed to who the contact will be with, but.
Yeah, and I know partly, this is Deb. I know partly I just want to make sure that, you know, we've been talking about, like, the board, MSC board has been talking about communication and things for years. And now that the board is going to disband, I didn't really necessarily think they needed to be in the bylaws, but I definitely think it's something we're going to need to think about and troubleshoot, as a piece of that representation is now disappearing. So I don't necessarily think it has to be part of the bylaws per se. It's just something that we need to keep in mind as we go forward.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think also that, you know, we've been brainstorming those different communications. We're sending the Gov delivery newsletter a lot more frequently than we used to. But if anybody has suggestions outside of this bylaws discussion for better ways to communicate with you, please do let us know. Any other discussion about Article 3?
Amy, this is Karen Mayhall from Billings Public Schools. And I guess I'm just wondering about number 2. When we talk about voting representation and we just each get one vote, is that how it's always? Apparently I'm comparing it to the executive board kind of thing.
Yes, it has, but that's a good question. So previous to when we had the executive board, the membership as a whole did always have one vote per institutional group. So like if you have multiple branches, you get one vote. If you just have one branch, you get one vote. But the executive board was sort of meant to be representational, be a way to bring concerns to the staff. And they did things like they would collaborate with the staff on like the budget and recommendations, and then they would bring that to the membership and do a vote. The membership would vote for whatever the recommendation the exec board would bring. So the vote per members is not changing. It's just that there's not going to be that executive board in the middle of that process. Everything that was previously voted on by members will still be voted on by members.
Correct. So my concern is public libraries and school libraries and college libraries function quite differently. How is that addressed then? So like if the school libraries want something, but we're overrun by the public and the college libraries, how does that go? I guess I'm just wondering as far as how is that worked through then? If we each get one vote,
We,
You know, those are different, and I
special-
don't mean to complicate it, so I don't want to have you spend a
These
lot
are
of
good
time.
questions. These are good questions.
Amy, can I talk about this also a little bit? Because I think that we're probably the most similar to Billings in that way.
Yes.
And I just want to say that I think like Karen does have a good point. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky as far as like the number of schools we represent. Just because we're in a district, it becomes a little bit sticky as far as all of our schools have to maybe agree to have a voting member. And then how do you choose within those districts like who is that voting member? Because I know that has kind of fallen on me because I'm attending the meetings as the MSC exec, which is no longer going to be in play. And so then we're going to have a district with, 19, 20 schools, and Billings is probably in very similar situation where each of those
32.
people, yeah, exactly. Each of those people, how are they going to come to agreement with their one vote, whereas a small school gets one vote, and we pay into the system based on the cost sharing formula and all those things. So I know this maybe isn't part of the bylaws discussion because it maybe isn't clear as to what the member who's signing on is, but Karen, in the past we've always had as MCPS one vote, just so you know.
Right. And that's, I just, okay. So, and I don't want to create any more discussion about it because I understand that and that's fine. I'm just curious about that part. So, and we're new.
Yeah, and I do think it's a good question. And to go along with what Becky said, this is that a lot of times the votes are broad, tend to be very broad. Like, do we want to buy this software or not? Do you approve the new cost sharing formula? Do you approve the new budget? So they kind of apply across the board. Although I know there have been times in the past where one group really wanted a new product and then it wasn't as useful for another group. So we do try to have a good conversation and to bring that to kind of a consensus. But we also, on the shared catalog working side, we do try to make that more customizable as we can within the configuration. So in terms of like what your libraries are doing for their overdue notices or how they check out or anything, that is a per library decision. It's just the voting units per the contract for the larger like overall discussion of the consortium is one vote per contract.
And
Correct.
just Amy, one other thing that I think is really relevant here is as we get down towards the bottom, and this has again been something that over the course of years, like the percentage of people participating in the meeting and what we're counting as like, how do we pass something, what percentage? I know that does change in the very last article. And so I do think we're going to have that conversation about what the representation is, like what percentage of people have to be there. And then of the people who are there, what percentage have to agree with each other. Those are, I think, the biggest sticking points of our bylaws as we continue to be like, it seems like more often online meetings, if we're going to go to direct voting or not.
Yeah, Becky, that's a really good point. A lot of the voting options we just pulled over from the old bylaws, and so if they need to be adjusted, we can do that. Especially like you said, online voting. We used to, right now I think we have just recounted. I think we have 120 voting members, and we have like 210 libraries in the system. But the sizes range all over the place. I do see in the comments that Heidi is saying a topic for a discussion for later changes. We could maybe consider a new formula for determining number of votes, something like that. And I think it's just historically, like in order to make it when it started so that libraries would be equal, when they joined, it was if you had one branch, if you had 12 branches, you were still just a library in terms of the voting.
Which again, though, relies on the school, not the school library model, the public library model. We are our own libraries, even though we're in a district.
So, Amy, this is Melody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Melody. We can
Okay,
hear-
sorry, I didn't hear you, Sven. Just wanted to mention too that in the past, I mean, there haven't been that many cases where there was a lot of disagreement among some of the decisions, but what we've experienced and most of the time, and of course you don't want to plan your bylaws around this, so we still need to address it. But in most cases, if libraries make it clear that something is crucial for them or very important for their libraries, the other libraries are very accommodating because no one wants to make life difficult for anybody. There's a decent amount of camaraderie in the shared catalog. So I think if there were things like, for example, that we needed to spend time implementing that only helped school libraries and the publics knew that that was going to take up some of our time, we would still probably see support for that if it was clear that it was very important to the schools. That has traditionally been how things go. And of course, we still want to address how to handle it if there is a disagreement, especially if costs gets involved.
Right, and we all know how budgets go. This is Karen Mayhall again from Billings Public. And that's, I just don't want to get looped in to an increase when we're functioning on school budgets and the public starts functioning on different budgets. And not that, and maybe that's not for this conversation. So I'm just going to say that okay for now, and I'm good.
I do have a question though, Karen. So do you anticipate that if there was, I'm totally speculating here, we have no action on this, obviously it's just come up, but if it was one vote per school, do you anticipate that all 32 librarians would actively be involved and attend these meetings and be able to take that role?
No, you're correct in that. That's hard to get 32 of us in one room going at a certain time when we're asked to. Yes, correct. But what I'm just saying for as far as budget wise, I'm just not sure how that, as schools in general, how we can respond if there's the other entities that want a certain item to be approved and we don't have that kind of budgeting, or we have a budgeting constraint. So that's all I'm asking. I think we're funded quite a bit differently, schools and publics and colleges. So when you're playing with 3 different budgets and we're asked to vote on something budgetarily, you know, if the publics overrun the school vote, I mean, or the schools overrun the public vote, as a matter of fact, and maybe that's just inherent in the voting system. So I'm not trying to create something. I'm just bringing up something that I'm curious about, I guess. So.
Yeah, I think it's a good question to have.
Yeah, it's a really good feedback.
I'm saying more as schools in general. So all of us schools, I mean, I'm not just talking about Billings because we're the biggest. I'm not saying that. I'm saying school libraries in general, represented in the state, then maybe that the public libraries can see a benefit in some increase or something else, but the school libraries don't see that same benefit. How does that kind of play out or work? Or maybe you've never had that experience. Maybe it'll never come up either.
Yeah. I think the closest, the one, I mean, it has come up in very long discussions about adding new products in the past and depending, and it's gone both ways, as Melody mentioned, that sometimes there was something that would be really helpful for schools that the publics wouldn't see as much benefit from, or as you know, that would benefit large libraries and not small libraries, regardless of what kind they are. And it really is just about discussion and trying to get everybody's viewpoint in there, and then seeing, and I don't recall votes that were very had a lot of discussion beforehand, but I don't know that I recall any votes where there was horribly bad feelings afterwards. So I do think that we managed to work it out to some kind of consensus. What is the word?
And I know that's the, you know, don't get me wrong, the benefit of us being together is that we can be together and share the costs and everything, which does come, you know, that's a very great benefit. So I'm just wondering if that has ever been an issue. So I'm fine with how it reads.
And yeah, there's another comment about, a couple of comments about libraries of other sizes, and then important to recognize that the large publics carry considerably more of the cost compared to the smaller libraries, and that multiple public libraries vote as one that have multiple branches as well. So any other discussion? It does sort of sound like, from what I'm hearing, that people want to keep that in mind, but we're not at this point proposing an amendment to this, anything in this article. All right, and thank you for the discussion. I think it's very helpful and important to have all those viewpoints brought up, but I'm not hearing anything. I just got muted. Have you guys been able to hear me? Did it just mute me? Popped up on my screen that I got muted.
I think you were just muted for a second.
Okay, thank you. So, hearing no more discussion, with the acknowledgement that we can always revisit the bylaws again, and it will hopefully be easier as we've adjusted some of the wording in the first bylaws, and that it won't be a complete rewrite as it was for this time. All those in favor of the motion to approve Article 3 of the bylaws, please say aye or type aye in the chat. And any opposed, say nay or type nay in the chat. All right, it looks like that motion passes. So moving down to Article 4, I would entertain a motion to approve Article 4 of the bylaws.
This is Susie from Great Falls Public Library, and I so move.
Thank you, Susie. Do we have a second?
Karen Mayall from Billings Public Schools, second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve Article 4 of the bylaws. I have to look at the other screen and see which article we're on. Any discussion or comments about this article? There was one comment in the Google Doc where it says we shall prepare recommendations and information for members, council review and actions. Ask that we make that part of the monthly newsletter, informing the membership of issues, problems, and questions that come up so they can be thought about and then give comment and feedback. And I think that that is a fantastic idea that we can move forward with. I'm assuming this was just a here's one way to implement this, as opposed to you wanting that added to the bylaws itself.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I'm not actually seeing any discussion in the chat. We'll give it maybe 30 more seconds to give people time to type things. 30 seconds is like a long time. So hearing no discussion or no further discussion, all those in favor of approving Article 4 of the bylaws, please say aye or type aye in the chat. Also, watching the chat go down as you guys vote. You guys are fast typers. It's like blizzard. And any opposed, say nay or type nay in the chat. Looks like that motion carries as well. So now we are on Article 5, and I would entertain a motion for this article.
This is Elizabeth Jonkel. I make a motion to approve this article under discussion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Do we have a second?
Gail Bacon, I'll second that, from Belgrade Community Library.
Thank you, Gail. It has been moved and seconded that we approve Article 5 of the bylaws. Any discussion? The first, Becky, was Elizabeth Jonkel at Missoula Public Library. This is the section. There are some comments. Most of this was brought over directly from the old bylaws, and this is where there was confusion in the old bylaws as well. I tried to clarify it a little grammatically where there was weird sentence structure. But obviously we can make amendments as we want. There was a comment about it's a quorum. This was changed, I want to say in 2013 or 14. Before that, we had proxy votes, and we had you had to, like, the vote had to be of the majority of the entire group, and they amended the bylaws at that point to do away with proxy votes and say that you only got a vote if you came to the meeting, and that the quorum just consisted of the people who showed up for the meeting. And this is the result. This is what I think Becky was talking about, like what constitutes a quorum. As it is in our current bylaws, it's if you show up for a meeting, the group who show up for the meeting are the quorum. So if for some reason only 3 people showed up for a meeting, we haven't ever had that. So
I just want to know, like, if this is the time to introduce the idea that the MSC staff has been talking about with direct voting, because I doubt that we're going to make a lot of bylaws changes immediately after this. And I do think this is one place where if we don't have representation of executive board members, like some people are underrepresented, schools, small libraries that aren't necessarily able to attend if they're the only person who would be running the library.
I think this is the right time for that. Becky, let me just scroll down. I think so the bylaws did say that it could be we could add something like through an electronic vote. And maybe if we wanted to change, to make that as an opt-in, or to switch that, because right now it's just in the bylaws where it says, we do have, this maybe needs a little adjustment because it says 2/3 of the members of the membership present or voting electronically. And I was thinking this kind of meant direct vote, but it's not spelled out here. So that probably does need to be clarified.
Yeah, when I read electronically, I read like as we do in our Zoom meetings, but if we are kind of collectively of the agreement that electronically could also mean direct voting, I don't know that it needs a change. It's just clarity.
Yeah, and Susie has a comment about definition of set out. That is a good point. We have always historically sent out has meant we posted it and then we sent an email saying, hey, we posted this, but that could use more clarity if it needs more definition. I don't think adding more definition hurts us at this point. So if people do want to make those changes, we just would need a motion to amend the draft to say what we want it to say, which I will write on the screen as we make the motion, and then we vote on that.
So is the direct voting then like proxy electronically?
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, what I was thinking when I've said direct voting in the past was things like where there wasn't a meeting scheduled soon, and we wanted to have a vote on, like, I can't think of a good example right now, but like something that needed to be voted on and approved by the members. we would send out a thing in advance saying this is what you're voting on. Then we'd send out some kind of a poll that was set to receive 1 vote per voting member and set a timeline of like a week for responses. Because we did, I feel like we have, maybe that's MLA that I'm thinking of, has done like basically mail voting, but via email.
So would that be inserted under number 5 then? Or 1?
I hate to be contrary. This is Susie from the Great Falls Public Library, but my understanding is that email voting does not meet the requirements of Montana's open meeting laws because nobody can weigh in. Like the public doesn't get a chance to be part of the discussion. Maybe that's a Tracy question, but I thought that it had to. My memory is that we opened up Zoom meetings and had the question and people could make comments and they could vote. You know, like there was a 2-hour window where you could log on and make comments and vote, and that was set to meet the open meeting laws. So
that is a very good point, Susie, and we could certainly do that. That actually might be easier to manage than trying to make some kind of a poll that only accepted votes from 1 per.
Because we have to follow the Montana open meeting laws.
Yes, because we do. The MSC does receive state and federal funding as well as membership funds. So
We can check with Tracy on that for sure.
This is Sarah in Miles City, and I'm new to this position, obviously, but going through my old Federation notes from most recently, our emails are not appropriate for voting.
Thank you. That's good to know.
But yeah, definitely check with Tracy. That was a couple of years ago that I saw, but I know our Federation ran into some trouble with that.
Yeah, and there's a question about the 48-hour rule, executive decision to call for an assembly. We do have this in the first number 1. It says other meetings may be called for, and it doesn't say it says agendas will be sent out at least 3 weeks. So maybe we just need something in here that's if to allow for shorter meeting periods, like that other votes will require, trying to think of how to word this, like meetings can be called to vote for single instances or something. Like the three week prior notice. I'm trying to think, and Kara, maybe you can help me this. If we've ever had anything come up where we needed action more quickly than like a 3-week notice period would give us, because the executive board in the past did have the ability to, like if we had an emergency, I want to say like in 2015, the server at the state library that we were on broke and we had to buy a thing and it was kind of an expensive thing. And I think the executive board at that point, we got them on and they approved that expenditure. But now that we're on remote hosting, we don't have that kind of hardware issue.
Right. I can't think of any other instances. And in that instance, you're voting to approve a budget,
right?
But maybe not a line item like that, where you would require some votes every time you need to make a change to the budget.
Oh, there's a comment in the chat that it's like the spring and fall meeting, the twice a year meetings would be the regular meetings. And then he's suggesting that we could have a special meeting that could have less notice than 3 weeks, but still have notice and then have that electronic voting. Any other comments? Do we want to make an adjustment to how this is written for voting?
So just to be clear, on number 2, are you saying that even if only 3 people showed up, that would constitute a quorum?
It does mean that, and that's how that has actually been in place since the proxies were done away with. But yes.
And this is Susie, and I would think we have to do that because it is really, if we even say 20% of people have to show up, I don't know how, it's really hard to get a quorum to come to meeting. So I really like that.
And like I said, I mean, the 3 example is good. I think the lowest number that I've ever seen was about 40, but the highest number, and to Susie's point, like we had for a very long time, we had about 110, between 110 and 115 voting members, and we never had more than about 60 people at a meeting. So, and it got pushed a little bit higher with proxies, but it usually, like, even when we had proxies, we had like 70 votes.
So this is Heidi Sue calling from Logan Health Medical Library, and looking at number 2, after previous discussions about the potential of changing the number of votes each library or each library group could have, this would actually make a huge change, whereas one person or one library who had multiple votes and they're the only one there, that it could be their own quorum, right?
That's true.
That's true, but they would have to let everybody else know that there was a meeting, and if nobody else shows up, then bad on the rest of us.
Any other discussion? And as I said, if we need to make amendments, we can, and I can type it on the screen. I don't want anybody to feel like they're getting forced into voting for something here. Although, also later on, we'll be making it we can always amend the bylaws again, and it will be faster if it's not rewriting the whole bylaws.
How would people feel about saying for a duly called members council meeting, those members attending the meeting in person or electronically will constitute a quorum, but not less than 25%? Just throwing it out there as an idea.
I'm gonna get my calculator out and figure out what 25% counts as, just so we know. Okay, so 25% of the current number of voting members is 30 people, or 30 voting members.
So you'd have to log in. I mean, Great Falls Public Library, we get one vote and we have 2 logins happening because one person is in a different location and we wanted more staff to attend. So I don't know that we could go if we, I don't know, you can go by number of people logged into the meeting.
So yeah, we would need to take attendance, which, I mean, we can do even, well, we do it sort of post meeting now, but we do have a voting units sheet that we can keep track as people were saying. Right now there are 56 people logged in, but like you said, Susie, some of them, I mean, 6 of them are from the state library. So we have had a couple of people drop out, but
I would be curious to know just what other people think about the idea of a minimum. It's interesting. I don't know if it's needed or not, but I think it's interesting.
Well, how about for the sake of, this is Karen Mayhaw from Billings Public Schools again. How about we can come back and revisit this bylaw and change it if we feel in the future.
yeah, it looks like it does sound interesting, but maybe to just keep it in mind. To Susie's point earlier about minimums, a couple of our sharing groups have had in their internal bylaws have had a required number for their quorum, and we did have a really hard time. Like, you'd get everybody for a meeting and you'd start counting, and then you'd be sitting there waiting for one more person to sign on so you could conduct business. So if you're setting a minimum, you do have to be careful with that.
Right.
But we can keep that open as a future thing if people want to keep an eye on it, and like we could get some historical records of numbers and see what would be a good number. And Becky, that's how can we conduct business if our members aren't attending is a really good question. I think that actually is part of why proxy voting was done away with. People felt like the proxy votes were problematic because people weren't there for the discussion. So like they got told to come and they were instructed to vote no on something, and then the discussion, and they were going to vote no, and then the discussion changed their mind, but they still had to vote one of their, their proxy vote that they were holding. They had to vote no still from what was discussed. So they took that away, or well, not they took that away. The members voted that proxy voting wouldn't be a thing anymore. But yeah, it is tricky. I mean, we are people interested in that? In Denise's suggestion, but with a lower number, or does look like people are willing to revisit that one later, and we are taking notes so we can put this. And actually, this would be a perfect example of a thing from Deb's earlier comment in the Google Doc, is like the questions that are coming up to give people time to think them over. We could put this in a Gov Delivery as a thing to keep in mind and be thinking of in preparation for our spring meeting, where we could then revisit a section of bylaws.
I think that's a great idea.
I also think that's a great idea.
Okay. And I will, I'm writing that down. I mean, we'll go back through these notes and, but I also saw in the chat that you'd be interested in representation we have seen historically. So we can pull up old, attendance records. Because that is an interesting question. It's been, I mean, historically, it's always been a thing. Like I said, I've never seen more than, about 60, which is half of our members. Your district requires you to attend these meetings. The contract actually says that you will attend. Some of our librarians have to use the contract as a way to force their administrators to let them attend. So we have both sides of that. But yeah, and there's a comment that it will give a good opportunity to those not in attendance a chance to review the discussion. Yeah, so we'll make sure that goes in one of the gov deliveries. We'll put a new section in there and we'll think of something to call it to kind of explain what it's doing. Any other discussion? There's a question about, do we have to approve the bylaws as a whole document, or can we come back and amend this article and number it later? We can definitely come back and review it. And normally in a normal course of events, it would be something like we need to add one section, one bullet point to this Article 5. So let's talk about that. The executive board being disbanded was throughout the whole document. So it was kind of a whole rewrite, which is why we're going through the whole thing. Any other questions or comments? It sounds like people are good with keeping this in mind, putting it in the gov delivery and possibly review. Yes, and that's a good, we'll put it as a review, review the bylaws for the spring meeting. And maybe we can put out a call if a couple of people want to be on a committee, a few people, to maybe do some suggestions. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the motion is to approve Article 5, please say aye or type aye in the chat. And any opposed, say or type nay. All right, it looks like that motion passes. So I want to pause and ask just a general question. Cersei Donix will be here at 3 to do the demo. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 articles left. But I would like to give people a little time for a break before that demo, since it's an hour long. Do we want to just break now and plan to be back at a couple of minutes to 3? Or do you want to try to do another article?
The next one, Article 6 that we're doing committees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do people think we can do that quickly? I mean, I'm in agreement for a break, but what is consensus? Break now or try to do 6 and then break?
I'd be in for trying to do 6. I can motion.
You want to make that motion, Karen?
Sure, I'll move to accept Article 6 committees. I'm from Billings Public Schools, Karen Mayhall.
Yeah, a couple people typed in that we can. So we have a motion to approve 6. Do we have a second? Okay, Carmen Clark from Bozeman seconded in the chat. So it has been moved and seconded to approve Article 6 on committee travel reimbursement. Any discussion?
Amy, you're looking at Article 7. I think you need to move up to Article 6.
Thank you. Article 6, committees, which is where we're creating the committees that we would then reimburse. Article 6, thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, I guess there was one comment in the Google Doc that maybe this should stay standing and ad hoc committees instead of just committees.
That was me, Amy. Sorry, just to be consistent with the future references.
Oh, I see what you're saying. In down here.
Yes, and our original bylaws. Yeah.
We have a motion to replace the draft where it says committees to say standing and committees and ad hoc.
I'll make that motion. Can it be a friendly amendment or do you need a motion?
Tracy said that it would be best if we do that amend if we
Okay, I make a motion to retitle Article 6 committees to the as typed.
Yeah, so this would say, I think, should it be standing and committees and ad hoc committees, or should it be probably like this, just to be consistent?
I second that motion. Karen Mayhall, Billings Public Schools.
So we have a motion and a second to adjust the title of this article. Any discussion about that amendment? Okay, all in favor of this amendment to adjust the Article 6 title, please say aye. Type aye in the chat. All right. It looks like that motion carries. So now we have moved back up to the original motion, but it would include this change that we just made. Any further discussion on Article 6? Maybe just a little bit more time if you're typing, because I know sometimes that you're typing and the screen is going. All right. So the motion now on the table is to move to approve Article 6 with the amended title and make it part of the bylaws. So all in favor of that, please type or say aye. And any opposed, please type or say nay. And it's looking like that motion is passed. So thank you everybody for that process. The name, I'll get the period put in at the end of 5 to keep the punctuation consistent. And now I think take a break. Cersei will be here at 3. So if everybody can be back by 3 so we can get started with the demo, that would be great. All right, it is 3 o'clock. So we have Cersei Dynex here with Cynthia and Rick, and I assume they will tell us a little bit more about themselves with a demo of their cloud source product. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and let them take over.
Okay, well, thanks. And let's see, I'm sharing my screen. And can you see it?
Yes.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much, Amy, and thank you for inviting Rick and I to participate in your fall meeting today. I'm Cynthia Bussey. I'm your account manager for CloudSource, and Rick Branham is our VP of everything, but he's here to talk to you about CloudSource as well. Do you want to say hi, Rick?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm a Montana Shared old timer. I was involved in your project way back before it was a consortium. So I was at one point on road trips with Bruce Newell and Suzanne and the whole gang riding around the state doing demos of Cersei Dynex stuff. So it's great to be talking to you. I wish I were there in person. But I'm in Louisiana at a user group conference here for the rest of the week.
And Amy, when I saw your the agenda, I had a flashback because I used to work at OCLC and I was the rep for your statewide contract with OCLC. So that took me back. So we'll go ahead and get started. And what I'm going to be doing is talking to you about, open access, the trends, what's going on with open access, and talking a little bit about what CloudSource is. But then I'm going to hand it over to Rick, and he's going to show you the CloudSource platform and what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, either if you want to unmute yourself or ask questions in the chat. So CloudSource, it's a new service from Cersei Dynex, and it's the only complete discovery platform where we're aggregating and exposing the global body of open access and open educational resources that are available that improve the discovery. It also includes collection, curation, as well as usage reporting. So it's a very comprehensive solution for libraries. And it allows libraries to really leverage all the open access content that's available through CloudSource. The current collection of open access content is approaching 60 million items that we have on our platform. And it includes not just articles, but it includes books, e-textbooks, and open educational resource material. CloudSource enables libraries to really evaluate and change the way they manage their electronic resources. Libraries can boost their access and save money when they promote open access resources first and use that as the bulk of their collection. And then they can supplement with paid versions of items as needed. But the idea is to provide access to very high quality open access content as the bulk of your digital collection, and then strategically subscribe to other resources. And CloudSource eliminates barriers for users. With open access content, user access is unrestricted. It's one-click access, and there's no login or authentication that's required. So you can start, libraries can expand their reach and value by promoting access to guest users and the general community that includes, people in the community that don't have a library card. CloudSource promotes more content. Users have access to that global aggregation of that peer-reviewed full-text content that includes, as I mentioned, ebooks and open educational resource content. And then libraries can save money on their subscription databases and third-party discovery tools with CloudSource. So the biggest part of the CloudSource index is the open access digital research material that we're aggregating from anywhere and everywhere. This includes open access articles, it includes ebooks, e-textbooks, and OER. And then when you look at CloudSource Plus, that includes all of that content that I just mentioned. But then you can also add your paid or that closed license content to the discovery experience. And CloudSource features the whole suite of smart tools where we're aggregating the metadata and enriching the thin records that come with open access content to make it for better discovery. And we've done a lot of work enhancing the metadata to optimize the search experience. So CloudSource users get quick access to peer-reviewed full text content, and again, without the barriers. So these are all the items, and no one else is doing the enhancements that we're doing with the metadata for open access content. And then end users can access CloudSource through a desktop. They can also do it with a laptop, but they can also access it with a phone or a tablet, and they're going to get the same experience. And Rick's going to highlight that when he shows you the platform. And staff users can access usage stats and be able to monitor, report the usage stats for their CloudSource usage. They also can curate the collection. With CloudSource, you're getting access to all that content that you can really customize the collection as you see fit for your users. And then for our CloudSource Plus libraries, they can curate their paid content, and you would work with your customer success manager that and each library would be assigned their own customer success manager with CloudSource Plus to be able to complete this in a very easy way. When we look at open access content and talk about that, what I want to start out with is, what is open access content? And it's the free access to information and unrestricted use of electronic resources for everyone. So any kind of digital content can be open access, from text, data, software, audio, video, and multimedia, as well as the open educational resource content. So it really supports lifelong learners. And when you look at the content and what's available, the first thing you're going to notice is that there's a lot of content. As I mentioned, there's 60 million total open access articles that are available today. And 3.4 million open access articles were published in 2022. 59.3% of the peer-reviewed research articles that were published in 2022 are freely available today. And the graph on the right shows that by 2040, we expect 100% of the peer-reviewed article output to be published with open access licensing. And that's really being driven by funding. The grant funders are saying that if you take money to do research, when you publish the papers and the data sets with that, it needs to be published with an open access license. And only about 16% of this content is being published in purely open access journals. And that's what you get in the DOAJ, or the Directory of Open Access Journals. And this is important to realize, because a lot of librarians think that they have OA covered, and they have it covered through their discovery or their content providers. What they really have is this DOAJ content, which is great content, but it's just a very small percentage of what's available. And if your library is relying on this content, you're missing out on the bulk of content that's in hybrid journals, and I'll be talking about that in just a minute. But it's also important to note that in the past decade, we've seen publishing moving from closed access to open access, with 54% of it being published just recently, that with open access content. And in a recent OCLC report, they found that the demand for open access is going to continue to intensify. And when we look at, where the majority of content is coming, it's from these hybrid journals. And as I mentioned before, only 16% of the open access is coming from the DOAJ, and these are the diamond and gold articles that are being published and in the DOAJ. But the rest of it, and that's 84% of it, is in these hybrid journals. And so this is where the bulk of that content is. And the hybrid journals are coming from top publishers. This is places like Elsevier, Wiley, Sage, Springer, Nature. And the funders are also saying, if you're taking our money, we want you to publish with open access. And this is coming from universities, research centers, private organizations like the Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust. And there are over 300 funders and institutions worldwide that have these mandates for open access. And then articles that come from hybrid journals are hard for users to find, especially when you don't subscribe to that journal. And there are documented cases that show that where an article was published with OA received a paywall reply. And so for most intents and purposes, hybrid journals are really still act like subscription journals for all intents and purposes. And the OA journal, the OA content is in the best journals. When we look at the top ranked journals, you'll see that they have a very high open access publication rate. And the top multidisciplinary journals that are out there, more than half of them have, a high levels of OA, and many are approaching or have become fully open access. And we see this discipline by discipline, that the higher the rank the journal is in that discipline, the more likely it's going to have a high open access publication rate. And there are over 100,000 journals that are publishing OA content. And the largest publishers of open access are the same publishers that we've historically, see as publishing high quality content. And they haven't reduced their standards for open access. These journals, these publishers want to be publishing the best authors with the most interesting research. And most of these are not pure OA journals. These are those hybrid journals that I mentioned. And these publishers make room for OA articles in their traditional subscription products. And these, reside right next to the articles that require paid subscription. And this is where, as I mentioned, 84% of open access content are in these hybrid journals. And when you look at CloudSource OA, we're taking all OA content. We're taking the content from DOAJ and the hybrid journals, and users have access to that with one click and no authentication. And although OA started with the STEM fields, it includes access to all subject areas. And it's important to note that we're seeing rapid growth with social sciences. The open access movement has gained momentum in recent years, and more researchers, institutions, and funders recognize the benefits of making their work freely available to the public. And I'd like to highlight that libraries are paying for open access today, but most of them don't realize that. When we look at, and here we're looking at a popular multidisciplinary database, and a lot of libraries subscribe to this database. We don't divulge who it is, but 70% of the collection from their more recently published content is 70% open access rate. It's 70% open access. So they have a high open access overlap rate, and they're not seeing a reduction in the price of their subscription as the amount of open access free content increases in these databases. And aggregators and providers will often say, well, we have a very low percentage of journals in our database that are open access. But what you really want to be looking at is how many articles, and that's when you see the high overlap rate. These aggregators and publishers don't want you to know how much open access, but we do provide a free report that I'll talk about in a minute on how you can determine how much open access is in your collection. And I want to highlight, I showed you, one multidisciplinary database, but because we do our free collection analysis report, we see every day libraries and analysis where they have a high OA rate. And here's an example of, some of the results that we see. A current social issues database that a lot of libraries subscribe to has 98%. Another multidisciplinary database has 78%. And a nursing database has 63%. So it's not uncommon, as I mentioned before, that 50% or higher of your collection of the subscriptions that you are paying for have a high OA rate. And when we look at the OA content today, we can see, how many articles are available as, 60 million articles, over 100,000 journals are providing content with OA. Ebooks and e-textbooks have, there's over 80,000 items. And then other OER material that support lifelong learners, there's over 36,000. And when you look at the benefits for CloudSource, one of the first things libraries realize is that they can replace their high open access or their low use, no use subscription databases with CloudSource. And this is where libraries start seeing a cost savings when they can replace those paid subscriptions with CloudSource. And because CloudSource is providing you full access to peer-reviewed, full-text, high-quality content, it helps libraries combat the misinformation and the illegal sources that are found on the internet. And libraries can expand their collection in a very cost-effective way by increasing their collection when you're offering almost 60 million open access resources. And libraries are telling us that they can save money on their ILL and document delivery requests when they subscribe to CloudSource because of the expanded content. CloudSource also aggregates all the content into one index, so it makes it easy for your users to find your e-resources. And it eliminates the typical barriers when users don't have to use authentication, login credentials. It makes it easy for them to find and use your content. And it expands, the popular reading and helps libraries meet their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. So now I'm going to talk about that free collection analysis report that I mentioned earlier. And this has been it's a very helpful tool to libraries. It's available at no cost. You can provide us with your title list and ISSN. And if you do include the cost of your subscriptions, you get a much more comprehensive report, but you don't have to supply that. The analysis is going to reveal the overlap of your existing eJournal subscriptions with CloudSource. It will also reveal the expanded article access. So you can see how much you can grow your collection with open access content on CloudSource. And you can get an overlap by database, the database package when you submit that. And and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But if for your library, if it's hard for you to give us the title list and ISSN, and you want to provide us with a database list, we can help you get started with the collection analysis with just your database list. So this is what that collection analysis looks like. It's for the Summit Library. This is a real library. We've changed the name, but it's real results. And what you'll see here is the first thing we're going to look at is their overlap. And right here, what you'll see is that this library had an 83% overlap of their more recent content, articles published since 2017. But when we look at their overall all publication dates, it's a 67% overlap. And these, we're going to see these as time goes on, and with new content, these percentages will continue to increase because the trend is for more open access content. But this library was able to, in looking at this, was able to see the value of CloudSource and became a CloudSource customer. We also will show you the expanded coverage. So here you'll see that this library was able to expand their collection by 89,000 journals and 23 million articles. And you also get a subject area breakdown on how much content by subject area that you're able to offer to your users. And then this is that database overlap. So when you provide us with your database packages that you subscribe to, what we'll do is provide you by database how many indexed journals are included in that database, but you'll also see the overlap rate of open access content. So here, when we look at Medline, you'll see that 54% of the articles published since 2017 were open access. And then the rest of this report shows you the methodology that goes behind the report, but it also includes everything that you get with CloudSource. And this is a very powerful tool that you can have when you look at your overlap rate, how much you can expand your collection, and then when you look at your usage, as well as the cost of your subscription, it can put you in a really good place to make those strategic decisions about renewal. In addition to that, we do provide you a real detailed breakdown that we will review with you when you request your collection analysis. And then what I'd like to do now is highlight the customers that we have with CloudSource that are taking advantage of the open access content that's available to them. So the first thing I want to show you is we have 64 institutions, and what you'll see is that there's a wide variety of sizes, and that we also have global international libraries that have joined us. And although all of you are Cersei Dynex customers, the orange stars do highlight the libraries that don't subscribe to, or don't use Cersei Dynex as their ILS. So we work with any library that wants to take advantage of open access content. These are we have 248 public libraries that are using CloudSource OA. I like to highlight, again, a wide variety of libraries. We have CleveNet, who is one of the busiest consortium in the country. There are 47 libraries that are using CloudSource OA. But we also have small libraries like Walla Walla in Washington, who is using CloudSource, and a lot of libraries, regardless of the size, see the value of providing open access content. We're working with 12 special libraries. We also work with school districts and schools as well. And then these are our CloudSource Plus customers. So the libraries that have that want to include their paid subscription into the discovery these are the libraries that are providing both OA content as well as their paid subscription. And before I hand it over to Rick, I just want to highlight that, that it's really easy to get started with CloudSource. You will be assigned a customer success manager who's going to, work with you every step of the way, answer your questions, and provide assistance throughout the process. You'll get started by filling out a brief online questionnaire. It takes about 15 minutes to answer. And then we deliver your CloudSource OA profile. You usually have that within a couple of weeks. And then if you purchase CloudSource Plus, you can take the OA profile live. And then while you're working on the your CS Plus profile. And our implementation will, again, work with you to, to add your subscription content if you go with CloudSource Plus. And then we deliver your CloudSource Plus profile with the expanded set of widgets. And you'll start testing and searching and linking. You'll test your searching and linking, and your customer success manager will assist with any troubleshooting as you implement CloudSource Plus. So now I'm going to hand it over to Rick, who's going to show you the CloudSource platform.
Okay, I just had to hunt for my buttons here. I don't know about y'all, but working from home, I've been spoiled with having different monitors. And now that I'm looking at a particular single laptop screen, it's harder to navigate. So bear with me a second. Let me pull up slide deck. Okay, so hopefully you see my screen.
We can.
Great. So what I am going to cover first, before I get into the demo, I just want to talk about the two different levels of CloudSource. One is CloudSource OA, so that's an aggregation of all of the OA content, articles, as well as open ebooks, e-textbooks, learning materials like online courses, videos, activities, worksheets. All of that's included in our OA aggregation, and we're constantly expanding it and looking at new sources for valid, vetted OA content that we can include. So that's a constantly ongoing process where we're growing the collection. And the collection gets updated many times per month. All of our various sources have some different schedules, but rest assured that what we're attempting to do is find any open access resource that's quality and goes through a peer review or a vetting process, and we're including them in the index. So whether it's CloudSource OA alone or CloudSource Plus, all of that OA content is included. And then we also include this metadata enrichment that Cynthia talked about, where we're adding all kinds of things to the record to make it more discoverable and useful to the end user. Widgets for interacting with the resource, like one button to open it, whether you're logged in or not. Resource statistics, permalinking, a citation tool. I'm going to show you all of this. Staff tools for curating your collection and usage stats that you can run on demand. And then, of course, discovery. Now, you guys use Enterprise, which is a great thing because all of this CloudSource content plugs right into Enterprise. So it's nothing separate. Often with public libraries, the struggle is y'all believe in general, public libraries do, that this kind of content is useful for your patrons. You want to include it, but it's typically somewhere else on your website. It's harder for patrons to find. And if it's not part of the search they're doing, then they're not going to use it for various reasons. So we're pulling everything into your Enterprise results. So it will get used, and we're going to talk about that. And then there's a publication finder. This is a new feature that we just delivered. And this allows you to search by the journal and see all the results within that journal and various other details. So that's where the similarities in between both products. CloudSource Plus adds to it all of your licensed content. So if you do subscribe to things from EBSCO, ProQuest, from Gale, we're going to talk about Gale, put a pin in that. And your other licensed databases, those get pulled into the index as well, so that your users, again, have one space to search for it. It's all there, one click to get to the full results. So for your licensed stuff to get to full text, we need something called a link resolver and a central knowledge base, and support for proxy authentication. All of that's included with CloudSource Plus. So let's take a look at discovery, starting with just the OA collection. I'm going to focus on OA. And for that, I'm using, this is enterprise, okay, but I'm using our CloudSource theme. We have a lot of customers like Las Vegas, Clark County. They're not a Cersei Dynamics customer except for CloudSource. And we can integrate with their OPAC, which is BiblioCommons. But we have our own theme that's a standalone. But I'm going to then show you an example of a full enterprise site like what you use and how CloudSource plugs into it. So let's just dive right in. I'm going to cover all these features as we go through it. But we could search for everything, or we could do a specific field search if we wanted. I searched everything for artificial intelligence, got 750,000 hits. I'm going to drill down to journal article, and then I'm going to limit to things from the last 2 years. So you can see members of your community being interested in this hot topic and what are valid sources rather than just look at rando stuff from the web. These are quality peer-reviewed resources. You see here that it's peer-reviewed. You see the license information. You see how many people are talking about it. What are the citations? What's the buzz? Those are web reviews. One click on view resource opens up the full text. We could not have made this easier. And I'll reiterate, your users don't have to be logged in to get to the full text. Permalink, I want to share this article, even a direct link to the full text. I can copy that and share it or bookmark it. Citation, I'm a student writing a paper. I need to have it in a certain citation style. You can annotate the style notes. You can link to a style guide if they're required to do so. They can mark it up. They can, I added a meaningless note. This is a great article, but you get the idea. You can annotate it. You can change the styling. So if I want to put a hyperlink on the DOI and want to italicize the journal name, you can do that and then copy it right into your paper, or you can export it. If you got a student using your library and they use RefWorks or EndNote or something like that, they can drop it right into that tool. In this case, I'm linking out to Browsing. They're a partner. A lot of academics use this, not so many publics, but it just allows you to browse the journal and all of the issues and back issues, etc. So let's look at the full detail of this record. And you see the results of all that data aggregation we're doing, metadata aggregation. We're adding all this to the record. It wasn't there previously, but we've built smart tools that make this record super useful to an end user. And these are references. I said, show me all the referenced articles. I opened them all in one tab. And I can look at the cited by, the published with. Buzz, these are those web reviews and mentions. Super helpful if you want to see what others are saying or have written about this particular article. All super useful. Now let's look at some other batch actions, display options. Let's drill into the facets a little more. So let me close this. And I'm going to change my view to a thumbnail view. And that's sometimes helpful because you can squeeze more hits in on the page. You can still use all the widgets to go to full text or build a citation or permalink or what have you. You can also do things in batch, like I can select all or particular hits and email them. Plug in my email address. I can print them. I can even build on my citations at once. We're making this so easy on the student to write a paper, select the references, drop them right into their document. I can also, let's go and clear these facets and let's drill in a little more on what facets are offered. I'm going to clear that search within. And let's open all of these. We looked at format and pub date. Let's look at language. So if they want to filter on a specific language, They can do that. They can even sort the facets by language or by count. Field of study, so those are those broad subject categories, mesh headings, the peer-reviewed status, the specific license, the publication, what journals did these come from? And you can see these are all top journals, peer-reviewed journals. I can look by publisher. Now the OER we're going to talk about more, but these are those learning resources. So I can limit to the type of material, the type of user, the course level. So if I'm at a high school, I can limit the things appropriate for high school age. All right, so let's also look at power searching. Many end users, many of your patrons aren't going to use this, but it's super helpful. Say you're a reference librarian trying to help people find things. You can easily build a query. Whoops. Did my screen go blank?
Yes, all we see is cloud storage OA discovery
Now we
screen.
see it.
Okay, the Zoom is screwing with me here. But anyway, so I just did a power search, and we also have queued up for delivery in about the next month. We're going to be releasing a query builder. So it allows you to say, okay, I'm looking for this phrase as an author, and I want to add it to this word is contained within the subject field, that kind of thing. So you can construct a query even if you don't know Boolean. So all that part of the search interface. Now let's talk about OERs and books. So we have partnered up with OAPN and DOAB, very quality resources to pull in and constantly update the open ebooks. We also are, wherever we find large collections of quality open ebooks, we add them, like from MIT Press is a collection we added not long ago. We are adding open textbooks from OTL, Open Textbook Library, and we plan to add textbooks from OpenStax and Merlot, or two sources that are queued up. And OER Commons is a partner. Again, we pay them to help support their efforts. And they supply us with things like online courses and videos and worksheets and activities. How helpful will that be for your teachers that may use your library as a resource? They're having to pay for their own materials a lot of times. This gives them really great resources that they can draw on for their courses. And it can be geared towards students, toward parents. And I'll show you more of that. So let's say I'm searching for social media teenagers. And I got a lot of hits, 126,000. I'm going to narrow down to books. Over 1,000 open ebooks on this specific topic. And I can see the summary of that. I can, one click, go right to the full text. Again, we made this so easy, and there's no restrictions on this. They can use it, they can share it, they can save it. And all of that is permitted under the open licensing. And then I'm going to do another search. Let's say I'm a student taking a calculus course. Then it's super easy for me to find resources as a student by choosing that facet. And right at the top of my list, AP calculus practice questions. So that takes me right into the course. These happen to be from Khan Academy, really reputable source of practice questions. And then if I drill down a little further, on the list too is an open textbook. This one right here, I can go take a look at it. And I'm into one of the open textbooks. Again, it can be super useful for a variety of reasons for your different types of users. All right. So everything, like I said, is, Cynthia mentioned it early on, is available through our mobile themes out of the box. Everything we have built with CloudSource, every feature, every click is rendered beautifully. If you come in from a mobile device, any size or orientation, everything works super nicely. My niece was having to write a paper for school. She's in high school. And we were together this summer, and she was like 2 hours tapping away on her phone. And I asked her what she was doing. She was actually writing a paper on her phone. which I can't fathom, but nowadays, this is where the kids are spending their time, and probably many of us. So everything beautifully rendered on a mobile device. So we looked at just kind of that standalone theme for cloud source. If you're an existing customer, it's so easy for us to deliver cloud source. Basically, we turn it on the back end, and that delivers the target, the widgets, the displays. Now your results display in a separate tab on Enterprise, because we don't want to suddenly dump in hundreds of millions of records into your catalog, because it will overwhelm everything in your catalog, right? So we put it in a separate tab. Plus, we have a finding aid in the third position of the results that point you to this tab. Maybe the users won't notice there's a new tab. That's why we include this finding aid. They can't miss it. And then we use your existing theme, so y'all don't have to change anything on your current setup. It's all turned on and delivered very easily. So let me show you. This is CleveNet, one of the largest public libraries in the US. And you see there was a new target. They called it journal articles. So I'm searching everything, climate change. Your results come up like normal, but there's this new finding aid that says their results in this tab, journal articles. That's just what they called it. So I'm going to narrow down to Lake Erie. If I'm in Cleveland area, I might be interested in that. Here's a really great resource that I can immediately pull up with one click. Super easy for us to deliver this, and for your patrons to start using it right off the bat. And they are using it. These are the stats just for, I started this when they went live on it, so April 2022, and they have had over 6,000 downloads, not just searches, not just views of the record, but downloads. And that is very significant, especially when you compare it to their subscription databases. This is heads and above, getting used way more. And that's not surprising. It's because it's part of Enterprise. People are going to use it because it's there and it's easy for them. Now let's look at Cloud Source Plus. I know there are several questions in the chat, and we will circle back around and make sure we address those. Cloud Source Plus, like I said, this takes those 60 million open articles and ebooks and other resources, and it expands it to include your subscription content as well, so that everything is part of Enterprise. We've also added some nice little tools like a Wikipedia widget that can show you articles about what you've searched. It can also do disambiguation, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. And again, your results show up in a separate tab, and that there's that finding aid. So here you see I've got the Cloud Source Plus target rather than Cloud Source OA, so it's everything. I'm searching for depression, and depression is one of those topics that has a lot of connotations. You're a more effective researcher if you can drill down. What do you mean by depression? Well, actually, I meant dysthymia. It's a mental health disorder. And so it re-executed my search on dysthymia. It's showing me that article on dysthymia. And then I'm ready to start browsing all the hits. 431 hits on dysthymia. So I can drill right into the full text. Let's do another example. I'm going to search for cybersecurity, and I'm searching everything. Again, so I'm going to get my books, my ebooks from ERC, all that in the first page. And then again, I've also got articles that come up. And the difference here than the previous demos, I got open articles like this first one that I can go right to full text. But if it's not open, it's going to give me a direct link to the licensed article. And I'll show you that next. So really easy to pull up full text. This is open. It couldn't be easier. In fact, let me search within the results. I'm going to search for phishing. That's a new feature of searching in Enterprise, which is search within for the Cloud Source results. And if I drill down, here's a great article. And I can see, again, it's open, it's peer reviewed. There's the specific licensing on it. And I can see that it's been well cited. So it's generating a lot of interest, and it has a lot of web reviews on it as well. So again, I can go right to full text, but I can look at the detailed view if I want to. You see the very detailed information about the licensing, the subjects areas, the locations of the article, the abstracts, author names and affiliations, references. And again, I can go right into a particular referenced article, or I can open all of them in a separate tab with just a click. Cited by, articles, published with, and then buzz, again, those web reviews and mentions. So there happens to be an article from Slate that refers back to this article. Really useful if you're deciding whether you want this in your paper or not. And then again, I can go right into the full text and all those other things we talked about. Now, what we're going to do is now let's look at another article that's not open and what happens. So I was looking at this one from OUP, Oxford University Press. So let's find other articles by OUP. I'm just going to click on that filter. And then if we scroll down, then I'm going to see here's an article that it's not open. It's a commercial license, but my library has it. So in real time, that view resource widget says, okay, it's not open. Let's check to see if they have a license to it. And we do. So it's taking you right through to the full text using the link resolver that's built in. There you go. So I was able to go straight to the full text. Now, if the end user were coming in from outside of your library, that's where a proxy server comes in. So we'd say, okay, you're a valid patron in good standing. So yep, we'll let you through, even if you're outside the library. So you see the details. And again, in this case, when I'm looking at the other articles in this issue, I'm seeing everything because CloudSource Plus has the open and the closed articles. So I can get a full listing of all the articles in this journal's issue. I can also see, okay, I get access to this because of these databases. So if I want to browse the journal within the database, I can do that. So it took me right into EBSCO. All that's being handled again through the link resolver technology that's included with CloudSource Plus. All right, so what happens if we don't have it at all? Now we have an option. Unfortunately, it's just for academic libraries right now. It's a program through the Copyright Clearance Center and also through a service called Article Galaxy. Those are for academics, but we are working on a solution that we can deliver to public libraries so you can buy things on demand, even if you don't have a license to the database or the particular journal. So that's coming. I'm going to skip past that because it's not particularly relevant for y'all right now. But if you don't have if it's not open, you don't have a license, then what you can do is present a really decent workflow to the end user. We don't want them to just have a dead end and be turned away. So I'm going to look for this example. In my demo system, I have a license to Nature, but it's only up through 2021. Again, it's my demo system. So in that case, instead of view resource, it says find resource. And it's telling me, look, you don't have full text and here's why. So we're showing the subscriptions only go up to 2021 and this article is from this year. So that you're just telling the user why they don't see a full text. But you know what? I'm giving them options. Look for a print version. In this case, the library has a print version. So if you have the issue thereafter, they can put it on hold. They can go grab it off the shelf. So again, that's one way to prevent a dead end. Another is they can request it. So we use this example. I'm using the enterprise request forms. Those just come with enterprise. But if y'all use another ILL system, then whatever you use, we'll plug that form into here. So it'll kick off a request. All right, there's a pub finder. So I'm mindful of the time. I'm gonna go pretty quickly. But usually they're going to start with just searching for everything. There are occasions when they're going to want to look at the journal and see what content is in a specific journal. So they can search a variety of ways. They can browse. So let's look here at things starting with AG. So I get a really nice browse. Here's Against the Grain journal, and I can see all the details of that. This happens to be a fully open journal. I can even search within or say, show me all the articles. One click, there's every article from Against the Grain. And then let's say I was looking for the journal Nature. I'm going to search. Now, Nature, I'm going to point out, that is a very expensive journal, but it is the highest ranked journal pretty much of all time. It's consistently on the top of the list from Springer. And you can see here that Nature is actually mostly open access nowadays, but if you subscribe to it, it's super expensive. My library has coverage. Again, it's showing me the coverage dates, showing me the print holdings. So this is an example again of a journal that's hybrid. So if you, in other discovery systems like EDS and Primo and Summon, etc., you won't see hybrid articles unless you subscribe to it. But with CloudSource, you get all of those hybrid articles. So, and that's 84% of all open access articles are from hybrid journals. You get them with CloudSource. Okay, really quickly on the back end, if you don't want to build a custom collection, you don't have to. Most libraries don't. You just turn everything on, or maybe there are certain things, there are a lot of articles, for instance, that are foreign language. Maybe you turn those off if you don't feel there's a need for them. Maybe you don't want to see conference proceedings, just as an example. You can turn those off, and I'll show you how to do that. So it's in Collection Manager. It's part of Blue Cloud Central. So if you don't have access, we'll set it all up for you, and you can give any member of your team access that needs it. And let's just go in real quick. So we go under Products, CloudSource. Let's go to Collection Management. And here's where I can build my profiles. So y'all will have access at a consortial level, and then all the member libraries, so you can build a specific profile for a specific member. And it's this easy to pick and choose things that you want to include or not include. All right. You can even go in at a specific level and choose one of our pre-built collections, or you can create your own custom collection. We now have a delivered collection on nursing, but as an example, you could build a collection on nursing. And you can just search a variety of ways, pull up all the journals, use your facets to further narrow down, and then very simply and easily untick the ones that you don't want to show up. Very easy. For CloudSource Plus, what this is about, I started my CloudSource Plus results with just showing things I had licensed and things that were OA. So things that were an immediate one click to get to the results. And here's how I built that. You just load in a file. It's called a KBART file of your holdings. And that turns on everything you have licensed, and it turns off the journals you don't have licensed. So that's a quick way to build that default collection of things you have full text access to. And then I can build other profiles like custom profiles, etc. And I'll show you that in a moment. Easy to run usage stats at any level platform, which includes search statistics, item level, this direct investigation. So I'm looking at the metadata requests. Those are the downloads. All it's following the counter protocol, which is the NISO standard for usage statistics of e-resources. So here's how easy that is to run. I just go into CloudSource and I choose usage stats. I choose the type of report I want to run. Again, you've got very simple filters and options on any of the levels. And then I choose my output and various limiters. And then when I'm done, I just click run. And the output is going to be, in this case, I chose Excel. So it gave me a spreadsheet of all the downloads, the requests, and I can see at whatever period of time I chose. And then CloudSource Plus admin. If you go with CloudSource Plus, again, that's the one that includes your licensed resource and has the link resolver and proxy set up and your IP ranges for your different suppliers. This is all part of Blue Cloud now as well. We just finished a big project to integrate that with the rest of the Blue Cloud infrastructure. And it's really easy to go in and add a journal or to again, tweak a policy for the linking. Now, the good news is CloudSource Plus, and we're the only ones doing this in the market. A CloudSource Plus is a managed service, so we will do this for you. We'll not only load in all your subscription holdings, we will keep them current, run reports for you, change any access that you need. If you add a new database or remove one, we'll set it up for you. But you still have access to the tools. If you wanted to do any of that hands-on, you could, but it is part of our service. Okay, that's kind of a big differentiator with what we're doing and the rest of the market. Okay, I'm going to skip through this kind of quickly. This is interesting. This is just a quick report that says, show me everything I've got set up that has no access. So in other words, I've got a title listed, but there's no full text access indicated. So I can very quickly see those, go in and make adjustments. It's something we do as part of your setup that's super helpful to make sure everything's covered. I just wanted to point out a couple of new things that are in development. And one of them is very exciting, and I'll get to that. Custom collections. I talked about how you can create your own collections. And we went through that, but there's several collections that are part of our delivered pre-built collections. So business and politics, nursing, and social sciences, we've already created for you. So you could just turn those on if you want, or use them as a starting point for building your own. But we're also working on many more. So I'm here at this conference in Louisiana. It's an academic conference, and we're working with the LSU Law Library to help us with their law collection that we're done with it. We're about to release it soon, but we're building these other areas. So I'm pretty excited that we're building high school, middle school, and elementary focused curated collections. So if you're worried about just turning everything on and it maybe will overwhelm some of your younger users, you can build focus profiles, focus collections, and then tie those. So if you have if you're using the kids catalog profile, you can tie that directly to the appropriate grade levels. That's pretty exciting. This is the other big thing. We're constantly adding new data. We just finished a giant project to add Gale content. All right, so with the Gale update, here's what we're adding. All of these databases from Gale. Actually, we just have two more that we added, a legal collection and another one I can't remember. But what that does is adds to our CloudSource Plus index more than just scholarly content, because Gale has done a really good job of curating things like popular magazines, news sources, archival materials, trade journals, all these things that go above and beyond just scholarly content. It's now part of our index. So again, if you're using any of these Gale databases, it could not be easier, because what we've done is we developed direct linking to Gale. So you simply in Collection Manager will plug in your Gale ID, pick the databases you have, and that's it. We've made it so easy. So here's an example of that Gale content turned on. I'm searching for ChatGPT. Normally I would only see scholarly stuff, but with the Gale index expansion, we now have things like Wired. That's a popular magazine. So I can go right to the full text on that. And then let's look at a newspaper source. So I'm going to go down and choose format, newspaper. And let's say I'm looking for something out of New York Times. So let me pick that. You see these newspapers represented here. Let's go to the New York Times facet. I could have sorted it A to Z, but anyway, these are all those articles on ChatGPT from New York Times, and I go right into the full text. So pretty exciting with the Gale announcement. And again, if I'm searching for something like Wired, then there again, I see the full details of that, and I can go right into the database or pull up all the articles. Okay, so I know we're right at the end of time, but I wanted to quickly open it up for questions, and I want to address your outstanding questions. I'm looking at the chat.
And Rick, I think I answered a bunch of the questions. One of them was, is the search result, is search within results available in the ILS, not just crowdsource?
No, that's a great question. So the search within is a new feature of the CloudSource index. So CloudSource, we built a whole new index. It uses Elasticsearch, and it lives in the Blue Cloud infrastructure. Now remember that your enterprise index are all handled in your local instances of enterprise, so it's a solar index. But the search within, the Boolean searching, all those advanced search techniques, that's part of the Blue Cloud search structure, search architecture, or I'm sorry, the CloudSource search architecture. And that is the foundation of the next generation of enterprise. So we're now developing what's called Blue Cloud Discovery. So that'll be your upgrade path from enterprise. So part of your maintenance, right? So you're paying for it already, it's included. But at some point, your upgrade is going to be to, rather than enterprise, it'll be called Blue Cloud Discovery, and it'll be using the same index. So those features are coming for all of enterprise, but it's going to be under the guise of enterprise next gen, which is called Blue Cloud Discovery. So Cynthia, why don't you just tell me what other questions I need
Okay,
to
and then the
address?
next one is do we have to use Easy Proxy in place, or does CloudSource Plus handle the proxy configuration files for the library?
Yeah, so you will still need to have Easy Proxy licensed, but then we will work with you and take care of the setup and the integration. But you still have to have that license. We're now an OCLC partner, and we have our own instance of Easy Proxy, and we have support channels and all the assistance that we need from OCLC. But and we're talking to them about being a distributor, so we can include Easy Proxy as part of our price package. But for now, you need to have that license separately, and then we'll take it from there.
And then the next question is there a limit to how many collections you could have in a profile?
There's no limit to how many collections you can have. And then from a search perspective, from enterprise perspective, for every enterprise profile, you'll determine which you want to show in a pull down list of, let me see if I can jump in and just pull that up for you. Sometimes it's easier to show it than to talk about it. And bear with me 1 second here while I pull it up. Okay, so if I'm searching for, again, cyber security, so I'm searching everything. And then I go to my CloudSource tab, and you see I have select search scope. This pull down list will include whatever collections you want to show. And you make one of them your default, and then you order the rest of them, right? So you can easily flip between the different collections on the fly. Okay, what else?
And then there was a question about the BC Discovery, about timeline for that.
Yeah, BC Discovery, the development has started on that, and we're looking at starting phase 1 rollouts of that to customers, probably starting with the customers that are in the active pilot group, beginning in late 2024, early 2025 for those initial rollouts to pilot customers again. So we'll start with pilots and then expand it. And then at some point we'll hit GA, but it's really, you'll start seeing software that you can begin using and testing late 2024, early 2025.
And I think that was it. Otherwise, I think I answered the other question.
Great. Anything else y'all want to unmute or put in the chat if I missed it? All right. Well, we have both really enjoyed talking to y'all. I would rather be in Montana right now, but hopefully one day I'll get up there again soon. I'm in Salt Lake City. Cynthia's in Portland. But it's been great talking to you. Anything else, Amy, before we sign out?
I don't think so. Thank you both so much for coming and demoing this for us. We really appreciate it. We've had, like I was telling our members earlier, we've had interest from various libraries, but we needed them all to know what it was about before we could move forward with discussing it. So
wonderful. And so y'all, we're very flexible about how we approach that with you. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. If only X percentage of the libraries are interested, then we can gear our pricing toward those intended libraries, the ones that plan on using it. But the more that participate, the cheaper your price is going to be. So we'll basically add up all your cert, come up with the price point, and then that's distributed amongst all of you. So it's a good deal for consortia. And the more that join in, it's going to be the less you end up paying. But Cynthia will give you as many price scenarios as you need based on the interest.
Amy, I was going to follow up. I was going to put together an email with some resources for CloudSource, like the link to the sample collection analysis report, how to request an analysis report for libraries that want to do that, and some other CloudSource resources. And I'll send that to you. Are you okay with sharing that with the group?
if you send that to me, we will pass it all along to them through our regular communication channels. So
great. Well, thank you very much for inviting us and letting us participate in your meeting.
Yes, thank you again.
Happy to do it. Y'all have a good one.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Do people need a break, or can we jump back into bylaws? Let's see. Becky had to drop out, so I'm trying to make it so that we can continue with the minutes. Let's see. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, I feel like we have just 3 sections left. So do people want to take just a 5-minute break and then jump back in? Okay, yeah, let's do 5-minute break. So it's 4:08. We'll do 7 minutes and back at 4:15, and we'll get started back with the. All right, it is 4:15, so I'm hoping people are back and we can move smoothly right back into our bylaws revisions. I think we are on Article 7, which is committee travel reimbursement, referring to the committees that are laid out in Article 6. So I would entertain a motion to approve this article.
Deb Western, I'll second it. It looks like Austin's in the
Thank
chat
you.
says he'll
Yes.
approve it.
Austin moved, Deb seconded. So it's been moved and seconded to approve this Article 7. Is there any discussion? This one's pretty straightforward, and I don't know that we changed anything really from the old version. Okay, not seeing any discussion. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving Article 7, please say aye or type aye in the chat. And any opposed, say nay or indicate in the chat. All right, that motion carries. Now we're on, we're on Article 8, but the numbering is wrong. It says Article 9, authority and grievance. So I would entertain a motion to approve Article 9, and I think then we'll have to amend it once we're in it to have the right numbering.
Can somebody make a motion to approve Article 9 amended to Article 8? If
They
so,
can.
I make that motion.
They can. Do you also, like, not to derail your motion, but do you also want to include the amendment to update to the most recent Robert Rules of Order? Because that didn't get put in there.
Yes, I do. I would like to move that we approve Article 9 with the following amendments. That the title be Article 8, and that the Webster's new Robert's Rules of Order simplified and applied be updated to the latest edition.
We have a second. Karen Mayhall from Billings Public Schools seconds. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve Article 9 with the amendment that it be retitled Article 8 and that the Robert's Rules of Order edition be updated to the most recent edition. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye or put aye in the chat. All right, any opposed, put nay, say nay or put nay in the chat. All right, that motion passes. So now we're on Article 10, which will be renamed need to be renamed Article 9, amendment of the bylaws.
So is this one with the voting electronically? That's not the email voting, that's the what we're doing now on Zoom, right?
Correct. Yeah, it has the amendments shall be sent by email notification. So that's the same as if we post them and then, so we've got the notice by email, but you can't vote by email. And this does have a little bit of a change from the original, our previous bylaws in that, let me pull that one up. Jumped onto a completely different screen. The old one, for the current bylaws says 75% of those attending the meeting. And I was looking at a bunch of different bylaws as I looked at them, and most of them have 2/3 instead of 75%. So. Sorry, I totally skipped getting a motion in a second. But it looks like Heidi Sue is making a motion. Heidi Sue, did your motion include the retitling of it to Article 9?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and can we get a second on that motion? Okay, thank you, Austin. I got a little ahead of myself there. We're so close to the end. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve this Article 10 with the amended name title being Article 9. The discussion.
So I'm confused about number 3. Because I thought what we were doing right now is voting electronic, like, can you explain that to me?
So the difference is they're in here. Oh, it does say 2/3 majority. I think earlier it might have said simple majority. And so it could have been like 51%, and the bylaws had a higher threshold in the previous bylaws. So maybe if it's, maybe we don't, this is, I think it was separate originally because it had a different voting threshold. And in our drafting process, we adjusted that and didn't notice that they were now the same.
My actual question was, I don't understand what the difference is between, like, I thought we decided that we couldn't email by, we couldn't vote by emailing, because that doesn't meet the, so.
I think when it says voting electronically, they were talking about electronic meetings.
Okay.
So, but it's, and I think also just a lot of bylaws have the bylaw amendment as a separate process, but yeah. Guess we could theoretically vote this down and then just vote to strike this and say that bylaw amendments follow the regular voting procedure. Or it could be part of the little committee that it seems like we're shaping up to revisit the quorum discussion and any other comments or amendments? All right, so it has been moved and seconded that we approve Article 10 with the amendment that will be retitling it Article 9. Any further discussion? Just because I want to give people a second to type. Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor, vote aye in the chat or say aye. Okay, that is the last article. Thank you, everybody. That motion passes. We powered through. That might be the fastest, like, complete revision of bylaw voting that has ever happened.
Thanks
So-
for all your work on this, Amy.
Yes, thanks. And thank you to our executive board. They made a ton of comments as we went through this drafting process. And like I said, the track changes became like spaghetti. Like it just looked like we dumped tomato sauce all over this document. We are actually at the point on the agenda of nope, not that one. Public comment. So we've covered all of our items on the agenda. Anybody have anything else to say? Thanks, Heidi Sue. She says she really appreciates MSC and all who make it successful. And I really feel like that includes the members. Like you definitely are all part of the success. I guess there's a little comment on my side. What are people's thoughts, just if they want to make quick comments about cloud source? We'll be sending out some polling and I'll send out the information I get from Cynthia about the pricing and stuff. So be hearing more from us about the cloud source, just so we have more data there. Great. And thank you to everybody who came. I know this was a long meeting today. But we got great participation and we really appreciate that. So it sounds to me like we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. So thank you everybody for attending. We're getting lots of thank yous, lots of thanks, and thanks again from the MSL employees for you all for coming and participating. And we will see you in your help desk tickets and etc. I don't know. We go back and forth on if we need a motion to adjourn.
If we do, I'll make it. Deb Westrom making the motion to adjourn our meeting at 4:28 today.
Thank you, Deb and Stacy. Seconds. I think we're adjourned.